Okay, should we get some coffee?
Sure. Where?
When people think about the famous sitcom Friends, they usually imagine 6 actors laughing together, spending time off set, and living like a real family. The chemistry between the cast felt so natural that millions of viewers believed the actors behind the characters were just as close in real life as the characters they played on television. For 10 seasons, audiences watched the adventures of Ross, Rachel, Monica, Chandler, Joey, and Phoebe, played by stars like Jennifer Aniston, Courteney Cox, David Schwimmer, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and Lisa Kudrow. Their bond on screen was so believable that many fans assumed they spent their free time together as well. However, years after the show ended, a surprising truth came out. During the reunion special of the show in 2021, Lisa Kudrow revealed something that shocked many viewers. Despite the deep friendship that fans imagined, the 6 cast members rarely met socially outside work. In fact, in the 17 years after the show ended, the entire group only had dinner together once. This revelation made many fans curious. Why did someone who seemed to be part of such a close group feel distant at times? Why did she avoid after-parties and group events? The answer is not a simple story about conflict or drama on set. Instead, it is a story that begins long before the cameras started rolling, going all the way back to Lisa Kudrow's childhood and the experiences that shaped her personality. Lisa Kudrow was born on July 30th, 1963, in Encino, California. Her family life was very different from the typical Hollywood story. Instead of growing up around actors or performers, she grew up in a home filled with science, education, and serious conversation. Her father, Dr. Lee Kudrow, was a respected headache specialist who later opened one of the first private headache clinics in the western United States. Her mother, Nedra Kudrow, worked as a travel agent and cared deeply about her children's education. The Kudrow household valued intelligence, discipline, and academic success. It was a place where discussions about medicine and research were normal at the dinner table. Because of this environment, Lisa did not grow up dreaming of becoming a television star. In fact, acting was not even part of her plans. As the youngest of 4 children, she often felt a little separated from her siblings. Her sister Helen and her brothers David and Derek were all older, and by the time Lisa was still in school, they were already beginning their adult lives. This age difference sometimes made her childhood feel quiet and lonely. Instead of spending time in large groups, Lisa often preferred reading books, studying, and focusing on schoolwork. Her teachers noticed early that she was thoughtful and intelligent, but also shy and deeply introverted. While other children were playing loudly outside, Lisa often stayed indoors with books that were far beyond her age level. These early personality traits would follow her for the rest of her life. Even when she became a successful actress, the quiet and thoughtful girl she once was never completely disappeared. In school, she was not known for being the center of attention. Instead, she was known for being serious and hardworking. She enjoyed science and mathematics and believed she might one day follow her father's path into medical research. Her parents encouraged this direction strongly. They believed education would give their children stability and success. Because of this pressure, Lisa focused heavily on academics and rarely spent time worrying about popularity or social life. Although she played tennis and joined school activities, she still felt slightly out of place in large social groups. She often described herself as someone who thought deeply about everything, even small conversations or social situations. This tendency to overthink interactions sometimes made her feel uncomfortable around other people. At the time, she did not realize how much these early experiences would influence her behavior later in life. But the seeds of her future struggles with confidence and belonging had already begun to grow. Long before she stepped onto the set of Friends and became the unforgettable character Phoebe Buffay, Lisa Kudrow was already learning what it felt like to stand slightly outside the circle point. One of the most defining moments in Lisa Kudrow's early life occurred during her middle school years. Around 7th grade at Portola Middle School, she faced a situation that would leave a lasting mark on her sense of trust and belonging. 2 of her closest friends at the time decided to abandon her as part of a cruel social experiment. They walked away, leaving her to wonder what life would be like if they were no longer around. This rejection was not accidental, it was deliberate, and for young Lisa, it felt like a test she had failed. Unlike most children, she didn't have a group of peers to turn to for comfort. Her older sister, Helen, recognized what was happening and quietly became Lisa's protector. She would pick her up during half-days or take her out to lunch off campus, ensuring that Lisa didn't have to sit alone in the cafeteria. Helen's interventions were small but meaningful, showing Lisa that someone cared even when the world around her felt cold and indifferent. Her parents, while supportive in their own ways, often responded in ways that left her emotionally stranded. Her father's blunt response, "Forget them," and her mother's inability to help her process her feelings taught Lisa that emotional guidance was not something she could rely on from adults at that time. These experiences hardened her resolve to protect herself. She learned to retreat into her own world of books, science, and personal achievements. Friendships, she realized, could disappear at any moment, and the safest course was to limit attachment and exposure. This early introversion and caution became a central part of her personality, carrying over into high school at Taft High. Lisa's success on the varsity tennis team, her academic achievements, and her mastery of multiple subjects gave her confidence in her abilities, but did little to help her navigate social situations. She continued to feel like an outsider. Even when she excelled in structured environments, such as tennis matches or science projects, the unstructured social interactions, the ones that determined popularity or friendship, remained challenging. She developed a habit of overthinking simple social cues and often withdrew from situations where she felt uncertain or vulnerable. This tendency to isolate herself was not due to a lack of desire to connect with others. Rather, it was a defense mechanism cultivated from years of emotional challenges and experiences of rejection. As she moved through her teenage years, Lisa also explored academic challenges beyond the standard school curriculum. She studied French, delved into biology, and pursued intellectual projects that stimulated her curiosity. However, the social world continued to feel unpredictable and sometimes harsh. When Lisa eventually entered college at Vassar College, she encountered a new level of freedom, but also new pressures. She studied psychobiology, ran varsity tennis, and continued to build her fluency in French, demonstrating her consistent drive and intellectual curiosity. Yet, despite these achievements, Lisa sometimes struggled to balance social and academic life. She was driven, capable, and highly intelligent, but the same qualities that made her successful in school and research sometimes made her feel different or isolated from her peers. Even romantic experiences were approached cautiously, as she tended to overthink interactions and remained highly self-conscious about how she was perceived. These patterns, formed in childhood and reinforced through adolescence, were not broken when she entered the world of acting. Instead, they became the foundation for her approach to relationships, work, and eventually the dynamics she would experience on the set of Friends. Before she even thought seriously about acting, Lisa had already developed the discipline, resilience, and observational skills that would later help her navigate the complex and high-pressure world of Hollywood. Her early life had trained her to pay close attention to human behavior, social patterns, and emotional cues. While other aspiring actors relied on charisma or instinct, Lisa relied on preparation, analysis, and precision, skills she had cultivated from years of scientific work and structured childhood experiences. This combination of intellect and emotional sensitivity made her unique, but also sometimes left her feeling separate from those around her, including future co-stars. As she transitioned into the entertainment world, these early habits, her tendency toward observation, introspection, and quiet self-reliance, would shape how she interacted with others, how she handled rejection, and ultimately how she navigated the pressures and complexities of one of the most famous television shows in history. Although Lisa Kudrow had excelled academically and in sports during her youth, acting was not initially on her radar. After graduating from Vassar College in 1985 with a degree in psychobiology, she spent several months working in her father's clinic. She conducted neurological research, analyzed data, and even had her name on a published study about left-handedness and cluster headaches. These accomplishments were impressive by any measure, but they had little to do with performing in front of cameras or connecting with an audience. Lisa's first experiences with the world of performance came almost accidentally, through people she met socially rather than through formal training. One of the most influential connections was with Jon Lovitz, a family acquaintance who encouraged her to explore acting as a creative outlet. He noticed her natural wit and comedic timing, qualities she had often dismissed as irrelevant because they didn't fit the scientific and structured world she had grown up in. It was Jon who persuaded her to try an improv class, an experience that would ultimately serve as a bridge from her methodical, analytical life into the unpredictable world of performance. Lisa's first improv classes were a mixture of excitement and terror. At the Coronet Theater, she studied under Cynthia Sigety, a teacher known for her honesty and tough approach to nurturing actors. These early sessions were humiliating at times. In one exercise, Lisa froze completely, unable to respond while her scene partner performed for several minutes alone. The embarrassment was overwhelming, and she almost quit that night. However, Lisa's persistence, combined with her methodical nature, allowed her to learn from the experience rather than retreat entirely. She observed how other performers threw themselves into their roles without fear of judgment, and gradually she began to experiment, testing out small comedic choices and learning to trust her instincts. Sigety taught her to stop overthinking, to stop building up to emotions, and to embrace the concept that it's all pretend anyway. This guidance was crucial in helping Lisa develop the persona that would eventually become Phoebe Buffay, the quirky, whimsical, and endearing character who would capture the hearts of millions. Her journey into professional acting was not immediate. Lisa faced repeated setbacks and rejections. She auditioned for Saturday Night Live and other pilots, often feeling unprepared and overwhelmed. Each failure reinforced her internalized sense of being different, of not quite fitting in. But she kept returning to improv and comedy, using her training to build confidence and resilience. She discovered that her unique blend of intellect, observational skills, and dry humor allowed her to stand out in auditions, even if she still felt out of place in social settings. Over time, she began to realize that her introversion and thoughtful approach, once a source of self-doubt, could actually be strengths in her acting career. Her careful attention to detail, ability to understand human behavior, and capacity for quiet observation became assets that informed her comedic timing and character development. By the early 1990s, Lisa had started to find small but meaningful success. She landed recurring roles on shows such as Mad About You, where she played Ursula, a character that would later be linked to her iconic role as Phoebe Buffay. These early opportunities were never easy. The work was inconsistent, the pay was low, and she often had to balance multiple jobs to make ends meet. She lived with roommates, borrowed money from family, and performed improv on weekends. Yet each experience, no matter how small or stressful, contributed to her growth as a performer. Even when facing rejection or financial stress, Lisa's scientific training and disciplined mindset helped her navigate uncertainty with a logical, methodical approach. She learned to observe her environment, analyze situations, and make strategic decisions, all skills that would later help her survive the competitive world of network television. By the time she auditioned for Friends in 1994, Lisa Kudrow had already accumulated years of both professional and personal preparation. She understood what it felt like to be on the outside looking in, to be scrutinized, and to face rejection repeatedly. These experiences shaped her approach to the audition process, the rehearsal room, and ultimately the set, where her instincts, intelligence, and unique perspective allowed her to inhabit Phoebe in a way that felt authentic, yet entirely her own. Yet despite her talent and perseverance, her past continued to influence her interactions. Even with a starring role, she sometimes felt isolated, unsure of how to connect with her co-stars socially, and hesitant to fully expose herself to group dynamics that had caused her pain in the past. This mix of resilience, vulnerability, and intelligence is what made Lisa both an exceptional actress and a person whose experiences resonate deeply with those who have ever felt like outsiders. By 1994, Lisa Kudrow had honed her craft through years of study, improv, and minor television roles, yet nothing could fully prepare her for the audition process of Friends. The show's producers had already selected most of the cast based on chemistry tests and prior work. Jennifer Aniston, Courteney Cox, David Schwimmer, Matt LeBlanc, and Matthew Perry were largely handpicked for their roles. Lisa, however, faced the additional challenge of proving herself twice, an unusual step not required of her future co-stars. Her experience of rejection in the past, including being fired from the short-lived Frasier pilot and numerous other auditions, made her approach this process with a mix of anxiety and determination. She drew on her improv training, scientific precision, and careful observation skills, turning them into tools for reading the room, responding to cues, and embodying the quirky, unpredictable energy of Phoebe Buffay. While other actors might have relied purely on charm or instinct, Lisa approached the audition analytically. She studied the script, imagined scenarios, and prepared for the unexpected moments that inevitably arise in live readings. Her approach reflected the patterns formed during her childhood, a meticulous attention to detail, a cautious yet thoughtful method of engagement, and an underlying awareness of the social dynamics at play. Even after securing the role, the transition onto the Friends set was not smooth. Lisa's personality and upbringing made her fundamentally different from her co-stars. She had grown up valuing precision, observation, and personal boundaries, rather than spontaneous social bonding or casual joking. On set, she often found herself standing apart from the immediate group dynamic, unsure how to participate in informal interactions like after-parties, group dinners, or impromptu social moments. These situations reminded her of middle school experiences when social missteps could feel devastating. Despite being a key part of a globally popular show, she sometimes felt like the outsider. While her fellow actors quickly bonded and shared jokes both on and off the camera, Lisa tended to observe quietly, engaging selectively and carefully. Her co-stars noticed her shyness, but may not have fully realized the deep-seated reasons behind it. For Lisa, social participation had never been simple. It required effort, thought, and calculated courage, especially in a high-pressure environment where missteps were publicly visible. Her introversion, rather than being a flaw, was a protective mechanism developed over years of navigating a world that often felt unpredictable and emotionally challenging. She had learned to rely on herself, to assess risk before engaging, and to retreat when situations became overwhelming. Working within these constraints, Lisa approached her performance of Phoebe Buffay with a remarkable balance of creativity and discipline. Phoebe's character was whimsical, eccentric, and often absurdly funny, yet Lisa's intelligence and understanding of human behavior allowed her to inject authenticity into every scene. She drew on personal experiences of isolation, emotional complexity, and observation of human behavior to create moments that felt real and relatable, even when exaggerated for comedic effect. However, her thoughtful approach sometimes set her apart socially. She didn't always know how to navigate the informal interactions that built camaraderie off-screen, leading her to step away from group activities or after-show gatherings. While the rest of the cast bonded over shared jokes, group meals, and casual conversations, Lisa often sought space and quiet. Her behavior was not about rejecting her co-stars, but about maintaining a sense of emotional safety, a habit that had been ingrained since childhood. These moments of solitude on